we're divorced from the present. To be in the present, to be here now, we need to be in our bodies, because this is the part of us which exists in this universe at a physical level. So this is the anchor. This is our anchor to this reality, the physical body. Hi, I had just begun the process of doing the talk that will follow now, when I realized that I'd left some bits out, and I have to apologize. I'm very amateurish at this. I'm still learning. It's taken 5 years almost for me to come to this point where I can just speak comfortably to a camera with no one else around apart from nature. So my apologies, I am not professional enough, and I don't know I will ever be professional enough. I'm not coherent enough in so many ways. My language lets me down sometimes when I'm speaking. So anyway, I do have good stuff to share, but you're gonna have to put up with my idiosyncrasies, my confusion, my struggling with words sometimes. If you can do that, you may learn something. Perhaps, I don't know. Anyway, be that as it may. So I was going to name this Become Self-Aware, or Being Self-Aware, something like that, when I realized that I'd left something really important out, which is self-remembering. We need to begin with self-remembering. I was in my 20s, and I was looking here and there, trying to gain information how to improve myself, and someone mentioned this exercise to me, which is see if you can remember yourself from point A to point B. So I thought, I'll do that. I will go from the station where I lived in London all the way to my mother's house, and that was about a 10-minute walk. So I got off the station, I was there, I remembered that this was the task I set myself, began walking, and then it was the next day. A whole day had gone by, and I'd totally forgotten my task of self-remembering. So the essential ingredient to begin with is to self-remember oneself. But we have a problem. The problem is that we are mechanical beings. At a physical level, a lot of the actions we do are automatic. The way we sit, how we eat, how we drink. We do these things automatically, and it's our bodies do this on our behalf to free us from the mundanity of life, mundane, just to save us time for better things, allegedly. And what happens is we fall asleep at the wheel, literally. Sometimes that's what happens. We fall asleep at the wheel in a car. But we fall asleep because our body's doing the actions. We don't need to think about it. This is really useful. If you're a martial artist, you train to teach your body to do things faster than your mind can do, right? And that's one of the virtues of being able to let our bodies take care of us, that it can work so much faster than the mental brain. And the downfall is when we're not there, because we don't just have one brain. We don't just have the physical brain. We've got the emotional center and the mental center. We could call them three brains. There are three in one within the brain itself. And if the other two are not working, and invariably one of them is not working, then we fall asleep. Everybody else thinks we're awake, but we're just a machine going through the motions as buttons are pressed, which is reacting the way that the button prescribes. And until we can remember that we're here, that doesn't mean to say that all the three brains are working, but until we can remember that we're here, we don't stand a chance. Because we will remember, but it will be a minute here and a minute there, and all the best intentions in the world of this is my goal, this is what I want to do, will go out of the window. Because we just won't be there to enact that goal. Hi. Continuing from my previous podcasts on a similar theme, I thought I would share my perceptions on self-awareness. I mean, who hasn't heard of self-awareness, right? We all try to be aware. Well, I say all. Many of us try to be self-aware. I say try because we don't always succeed. And the challenge of self-awareness is, first, how do I actually become self-aware, and what am I self-aware of? Then I practice this, and once I've gained proficiency in this collective self-awareness, then I can let it go. So I don't need to be focused and self-aware, because it's become inbuilt into my psyche. I am now aware. Like when we start something, we often trip over ourselves. As we're learning something, we're putting too much will, too much focus, and that's how it is. That's how we learn any skill. And then we become proficient in it. And once we've become proficient in it, we can let it go, because it's now into our system, it's part of who we are. So, going to the beginning, self-awareness. So we've got a physical body, we've got a mind, and we've got emotions as the go-between. We want to be aware of our body, we want to be aware of emotions, and we want to be aware of our mind. To begin with, we want to become aware of our breath without interfering with it. And I've got other videos which explain how to do this. When we're young, there's a concept, emotional intensity. When we're young, we have childhood experiences whereby our physical body wants to express itself in a certain way, whichever way that is. And whether by osmosis or as a rule, we're told, don't do this, don't do that, don't behave this way, don't behave that way. And so then we learn to self-censor. So we begin to control ourselves, we begin to control our physical movements, we begin to control our emotional expression. And to the extent that we fail, we generate conflict with parents, other siblings, with school teachers, and at some point we feel really aggrieved. The conflict internally becomes too great, and we don't have the resources by which to deal with whatever's happening inside us emotionally, this emotional discharge, and the brain kicks in and it suppresses that particular emotion. It could be anything: anger, sadness, grief, jealousy, envy. There's so many variations on a theme. Ultimately, it's all to do with fear. However, we learn to suppress. And what we actually suppress is the muscles. We don't do it consciously, but we learn to suppress muscular activity, which would otherwise, the hormones within us are now getting to rev into overdrive. There's a lot of adrenaline, and we need activity, we need action, whatever it is. So the first thing we suppress is our emotions by the diaphragm. So the muscles of the diaphragm seize up. And this is how we begin to manage the emotional intensity which would otherwise overwhelm us. And over the years it becomes part of who we are. And so to become self-aware, we begin with the process of learning to relax our diaphragm by breathing properly. We also suppress in other parts of our bodies, and that creates physical tensions. And so the secondary part of this, of being self-aware in our bodies, is to become literally aware of the body. That means, we've got nerves running through all our muscles, through all our limbs. The whole of our body is filled with nerve endings, or nerves that run internally. And there's no reason why we shouldn't actually be aware of that. We should be aware of our legs, our arms, our shoulders. All of that should be available to us on an ongoing basis. But it isn't. Because as part of growing up, we've learned to suppress emotions which have somatized within muscles within the body, and then they become like no-go areas because they're painful. We remove ourselves from emotional pain, we remove ourselves from physical pain. And so gradually we move away from our body and we end up in our heads. Once we're in our heads, we've got a problem, because self-awareness is now severely limited to moments and to parts of our body and to certain emotions which are still available to us. So to become self-aware is to become self-aware not of the bits which are available to us, but of the bits which are not available to us. And this is a process that we have to work at. And so we do exercises where we focus into our bodies, where we focus into our emotions, and we gradually learn to become flexible, because what we've done up to this point, what I have described, is how we have become inflexible. So the self-awareness is to do exercises which will focus us into our bodies, like yoga, running, bodybuilding, whatever. anything that brings focus into the body. There is another part of the body which is like if I say to you, focus on the little toe of your left foot, for the sake of argument, okay? You sort of, and you may or may not be able to do it without any hassle. If I said to you, right, hold your body in a certain way, you may start to look down at your body to see which way your limbs are in which position, spatially speaking. And if you haven't worked with your body, you may struggle with that, because it's not just the nerves that give feedback to the brain. We also have information through the fascia system that links up directly. It bypasses the nervous system and it connects directly into the brain, and that gives us spatial awareness of our body, of the position of our body. Martial arts is very good for that, to give us that body sensation, that awareness of how our body is holding itself in space. So you can see that there can be quite a bit to pick up to begin with, but it's quite important, because unless we are in our bodies, we're going to struggle with what's going on in our heads. So the average human will have gone through this process of separation from their body, separation from their emotions. They end up in their thoughts. So now what happens is that the thoughts themselves become our reality. So instead of being here, sitting, aware, present in this environment, my brain will be interpreting the environment and telling me what the environment is. So it's secondhand. There's no direct experience of my being here. And so the thoughts get very busy. And I'll tell you when the thoughts get really busy, when we're emotionally churned up. When we're emotionally churned up, some sort of conflict with someone or other, something's going on, and now there's going to be a lot of self-criticism, or I would have said this, I would have said that, I would have reacted this way or that way. We're creating this whole story about an event that's already happened, and it's all going on in our heads, and it can feel like you're going mad. You know, if the thoughts get really, really busy, really churning, you go, oh God, I want peace, peace. What does peace mean? Then, I go and meditate, zombie myself out, and self-hypnotize myself into a stupor. So I now have peace, but it's actually not peace, it's somnambulism. It's total disassociation. I've been there. I mean, I speak from experience. And yes, it is a sort of peace, but it's not the peace we're after. The peace we're after is where we are in our bodies, where emotionally we are connected, and our emotions are just revving. You know, if you turn an engine on, if you got a car, you turn the engine on, you can throttle, brum, 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 brum. Forget that. You turn the engine on and it's just idling. You know that you can press that pedal anytime you like and the engine will rev. So what we're after is our openness to emotions, all the emotions, good, bad and ugly, all of them available to us, because the engine is connected and it's just revving gently. So, you could easily piss me off and you would get my anger straight away telling you, you fucking mind your limits, whatever it is. The point is, I'm not switching off from any emotion. They're all available to me. The difference from the average human being is to experience that intensity of the emotion internally. Yeah. Don't dump your emotion onto someone else, because that is the tendency. When we cannot hang on to the emotional intensity, we then need to splurge it out, and that's when we lose our cool and we become reactive, emotionally reactive. That's not healthy for them or for us. But that doesn't mean to say that we have to switch off the emotion. We need to experience the emotion because it's already been triggered. The hormone has triggered the emotion, the movement through the body. Muscles go into action. So we breathe it. We breathe our way through the emotion. Brain comes in, but not from the reactive chitty-chatty, but from the focused mind of, actually, this is what's going on. Usually it's a misunderstanding. Most interactions between human beings which lead to aggro are misunderstandings. Most of them. Occasionally there are people who are pathologically out of it, and then there is no misunderstanding. They are deliberate, they mean to do that, but we don't experience that very often. The majority of the time, conflicts between people are based on misunderstandings, different perceptions, different programs in their heads as to how the world is. So we learn about the body, and then we want to clear the trauma of those emotions. And the problem there is emotional intensity. We've been suppressing certain emotions for so long that as soon as that intensity of emotion begins to rise up within us, the mind has already been programmed from childhood, and it dampens that. It dampens the emotion and it cuts us out. And we now become disassociated. Our thoughts go 10 to the dozen. We are no longer connected with our bodies. We now have all the words in our heads to distract us from that experience, whilst the muscles which were involved in that emotion go into spasm. And that's a difficult challenge to deal with. So we have to build up our capacity for emotional intensity through practice. The practice of experiencing those emotions that we struggle. And that's the problem, because we don't know which ones we're struggling with. This is where writing over our childhood is a good idea. Like writing our experiences, what we remember of our childhood. Because in the process of writing, not on the computer, but literally with a pen, as we write our experiences and we piece our life together, we will encounter emotions. They're always been there. They're in the background. They're in the subconscious. But in the process of writing and piecing our childhood together, they will come to the surface to some extent. And as they come to the surface, we now give ourselves the opportunity to breathe into the emotion, which will more often than not be localized in the lower abdomen. Sometimes the intensity of it will go into our solar plexus, other times it will go into our heart or our throat. However, whatever it is, we need the practice of experiencing emotions which are uncomfortable to us. By the same token, when we hurt ourselves physically, If you look at children when they hurt themselves, they start to shout their heads off. They make big drama, cries, this, that, the other. What they're doing is they're avoiding the physical pain, the intensity of the experience at a physical level. So it is also good practice. You know, let's say you're a tall guy and you whack your head against the door top. Ah! You know, you can shout, you can scream, you can do all manner of things, you can try to forget about it. Well, try this. Go down onto your knees, put your hands on your head, focus on the pain, and now connect with feeling how sorry you are for having done that to yourself. You didn't mean to, but at some level you did, and you did it to yourself. There was no one else there. You hit it, you went to where? You were off in your head somewhere, you were not aware of your environment, and you whacked yourself. Now you're suffering with the pain. Experience the pain. Easier said than done. Experience the pain. You lie there, you sit down there on the floor for about a minute or so, and you focus on that throbbing till it begins to go away. There are actually very good reasons why you should do that anyway. But of itself, it's a very good exercise. The reason why it's a good idea is because when we disassociate from physical pain, the same as emotional pain, we traumatize a part of our psyche, of our physical body. There is an electrical energy that somehow becomes seized in that area. And in time, depending on the severity of the damage, you probably find you keep whacking yourself in the same spot again and again and again. Don't ask me why, but that's what we do. We repeat patterns, and it can lead to illness. It may sound incredible, but if you create physical damage, even though it may heal on the surface, the tissues underneath, they hang on to that trauma at some level. So it is a good idea, whenever we hurt ourselves physically, to literally pause, stop the world, focus on that pain, on that throbbing, connect with your feelings, experience your sadness. You've done this to yourself. Maybe shed a tear or two. And that way you heal that. It seemed like nothing trauma, but it can't stay within you for a long time. Anyway, so all of this adds to self-awareness, right? Because you're in pain, you're now self-aware. You're definitely self-aware of the pain. So you focus on it. You're practicing being in your body. You're practicing being present in your emotions. And you'll find that when you do that, your mind shuts up. So you learn to stop the thoughts in your head when it matters. So this is a process that can take years, but you can speed it up if you say, I'm going to do this. I am determined. I will become aware of my body. I will become aware of my emotions. And you might need to go into some sort of therapy, because, you know, some traumas from childhood can be very intense. And if you, and this is worth sharing, if you re-traumatize yourself, for example, I'll go off the deep end. Someone abused me, okay, when I was young, for the sake of argument. And I forget about it, switched it off. Now I'm older, I've reawakened that memory. Something's happening in my world, that memory's come to the surface. It's in the background. And now I dwell on it. And I can feel self-disgust, I can feel hate, I can experience all manner of negativity, and it just keeps going round in circles inside me. And every now and then I get real strong emotions of self-disgust or hate. And what I'm doing all this time is I am re-traumatizing the initial experience, the initial suppressed emotions, whatever was going on. I continue to re-traumatize it every time I relive the experience, because I am reliving the experience in my head. I'm not reliving the experience in my emotions and in my body. So I have become disassociated. And every time that I re-traumatize myself by reliving the experience, I make it worse. I make myself worse. And in time I will make myself sick. I am not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is you have to do it. But you have to do it by connecting that experience within your body and within your emotions. Because what's required is the release of those emotions. And it's easier said than done by oneself if the experience is quite traumatic. But the important thing is that it has to be re-experienced in the body and in the emotions, not in the head. In the head, re-traumatized. Just emotions, re-traumatized. Because when you say just emotions, you're not experiencing the initial emotions, the initial experience. You are experiencing the reactions to the event. And you just re-traumatize yourself more and more. It gets worse. People get very ill this way. And yet, that's what you have to do. You have to experience that in the body, in the emotions. It's the only way to release trauma from our childhoods. Or even from last year, any intensity of trauma has got to be relieved, if that's the word, relieved, to live it once more, relieved in the present, as though it's happening now, and released from within the body, usually somewhere along the midline, one of the chakras. There is a blockage. There's been an intensity of emotion that got blocked, and that needs to be released. And you might need help. Okay, I went to a lot of people over the years to help me, and some people gave me a little bit of help, other people not so much. I got little bits here and there. Ultimately, I released myself from the deepest wounds in my psyche by literally sealing myself off from the world. And I spent 2 weeks writing my childhood experiences. And it's amazing what I remembered, which I'd totally forgotten. But suddenly it was all there. And over 2 weeks, I wrote it all down. And as I wrote it, I experienced all my childhood traumas. And I also realized that my deepest wound was based on a misunderstanding. Can you believe that? My deepest wound of all was based on a misunderstanding with my mother. And it was about me forgiving her. I needed to forgive her. But I couldn't forgive her. For years I was angry. But once I relived that experience and with my adult self made sense of it, I realized it was a misunderstanding. I thought she didn't care about me. I truly believe she didn't love me. And there were other reasons why I believed that. But this one incident was the clincher. And it was the one that affected me the most deeply, and I totally blocked it out. And once I reconnected with that, and I let her go, and I allowed my love to flow towards her, my world changed. From that moment onwards, I became a different man. Anyway, so that is a process that we go through towards being self-aware. You know, I was self-aware from very early on, but those areas of my life, those emotions, those traumas, they always got in the way of truly being self-aware. So anyway, so I've shared about the body, I've shared about the emotions, the mind. A lot of our problems is because we've already switched off from everything and now we're locked in our heads. And what we have there, invariably, is self-criticism, self-disgust, often self-hate. All of this keeps us prisoners in our head. If we are to become truly self-aware, we have to be aware of the thoughts in our head. And you know, thoughts are programs. The basis of modern selling is repeat something often enough and then you'll buy it because you believe it's good for you. You know? And that's what they do, is repetition. The impulsive buying relies on repetition of a product, telling you how good it is, till you come to believe it is. The same inside your head. If you keep criticizing and telling yourself you're not good enough, you can't do this, you can't do that, I'm horrible, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, my nose is crooked, whatever it is. You repeat that often enough, it becomes how other people see you. Because you've become that. You have become the madness in your head. And you go through life pushing that perception onto others. This is who I am. And people will pick it up straight away. They pick it up by your body posture, they pick it up by your smell, they pick it up just in their guts. You know, we are walking we're walking radar systems. We're constantly throwing out electrical emanations, telling the world, this is who I am, this is how I am. Everybody's picking up signals from you, from all of us. So we want to gain this self-awareness, and this gets in the way. So every time, to begin with, you know, you can't stop your thoughts, and you become identified with your thoughts. But what you can do is you can say, I'm talking to myself, I'm not my thoughts. Okay? I'm talking to myself, I am not my thoughts. Step one. Step two, what's going on? For that answer, you cannot get the answer up here. You have to go into your body. So all the previous exercises, connecting with your body, relaxing your muscles, connecting with emotions, all of that will stand you in very good stead. Because now you separate yourself from your thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. What's going on? What happened? So now I go back in time, a day, a week, an hour, to whatever led to my thoughts going crazy. There will have been an interaction with someone else. That interaction has evoked emotions within me that for whatever reason I don't want to know about. So now I'm switching the emotions off and I've gone off into my head. So now I need to reverse that process. So now I'm not my thoughts. That's what happened. I now relive the experience with this other person. What am I feeling? What's going on inside me? What has upset me? What's the emotion? And so gradually I work with this and I become better at identifying that I am emotionally upset for whatever reason. And I breathe into it, always breathe, okay, always breathe. Because this is how we stop our emotions. So we need to learn how to breathe. All of this is prelude. So now I breathe into the emotion, I experience the emotion, whatever it is. And, maybe I feel embarrassed. Maybe, I don't know, negative emotions. I don't get many of those these days. Maybe I am upset because the other person is now has rejected me, and I'm experiencing rejection. And rejection is very, very uncomfortable because behind rejection there's fear. So stay with it, breathe into it, experience that. What was the interaction? Why, what was actually going on? Was it a misunderstanding? What did I say? What did they say? So we relive it in the present. We relive the experience so we can release it. It's a process and it takes time. The end of it, you start at one end, you come at the other end. The end of it is that we develop a sense of who I am. It's not a sense that is based on what I do in the world. It's based on a sense of a feeling within my heart. Within that, it encompasses my personality. My personality is there. But that's not where it comes from. That's just the outer layer. The inner layer, which is the large, if you like, the outer layer, the ego is just the skin of the fruit. But inside, this is the fruit. And that is a feeling of self. And when we're in that feeling of self, we've reached the point where we can do all manner of activities. The head can go, it can begin thinking about silly things because the head is like a tape recorder. It's always repeating whatever is going on. So if I have an interest in something and I focus on something, there is an intention from deep within me and my head will verbalize it. If I'm not truly focused, my head will verbalize it. That's okay. It's background chatter, just like this. All the birds are chattering away in the background. It's background chatter. It's not who I am. Because I am this feeling, and this feeling is there in whatever activity I do, whether I'm less aware on the surface or more aware on the surface. That sense of who I am becomes the constant. And it's not in here. It has to be in here. Because when when we're in here, we are divorced from time. We are divorced from now. We're divorced from the present. To be in the present, to be here now, we need to be in our bodies. Because this is the part of us which exists in this universe at a physical level. So this is the anchor. This is our anchor to this reality, the physical body. So we need to be in the physical body. And inside that is our heart. I'll leave it here for now. I think next time I want to talk more about the higher functions of being a human being, which are really important. So till next time, if you enjoy my ramblings, give me a like. That way other people will, I'll listen to him. So, bye for now.